Hello and welcome to Chaos to Clarity, the podcast that's your compass to navigate the exciting world of service-based businesses. If you're a determined woman in your current business adventure, striving to conquer the chaos and build your empire, then you are in the right place. I'm your host, Maggie, your go-to business bestie and chaos navigator. I've spent nearly 2 decades in the service-based industry, building a photography business, a yoga studio, and now a thriving coaching practice. I've cracked the code to consistent income without all the chaos and noise. So get ready to increase your business growth, connect with your ideal clients, and find ease in both business and in life. It's time to turn your frustrations into inspiration and your chaos into clarity. So go ahead and grab your coffee, a pen and paper, and let's dive into the journey of building your dream service-based business together. Are you ready? Let's go. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Chaos to Clarity podcast. My name is Maggie. I'm your business bestie and your Chaos to Clarity coach. And today I have with me Chelsea Carter, and I am so excited she's here. Chelsea, I'm going to let you take it away. Tell everyone who you are, what you do, and how long you've been in business.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited first. Yeah, my name's Chelsea Renee Carter, and I have been in business now for 3 years and full time, just dedicated to all of the epic work I do. And that is hosting retreats, supporting heart-centered leaders and people who are ready to follow their hearts and activate their inner wisdom. And I also work in the breathwork field, and I have so much fun. And that's a whole big Pandora's box we can get into. And I also love working with psychedelics. So that is a little bit about me.
I love that. That is so awesome. And I think just as a former yoga studio owner, the breathwork piece, I think, is something that really like drew me in because I'm like, oh my gosh, breathwork is it's so mind-blowing, right? And the first time I took a yoga class, like the breath in a yoga class, we got done and I was like, what what just happened, right? I mean, it was a power yoga class, so I was also like really I had no clue what power yoga was. Walked into there and I was like, "Oh yeah, yay, stretching. Oh, I'll do some light stretching for an hour." Got my ass kicked. But also the breath where I was able to like tap into myself and like get into like spaces that I didn't know were possible, right? And I was like, I gotta come back. This is crazy. And if I think about it, like yoga as a whole, like, yes, I love the movement piece, but the breath work is really kind of what keeps me coming back.
Yeah, I completely understand and agree. I used to teach at a yoga studio, a breathwork and meditation class, because it was so like people were like, I want to experience this kind of, and those were just like the different pranayama yogic
Right.
breaths. Because obviously there's like hundreds of breath techniques out there that have different ways that they can access different parts and so just so profound. People drop in totally in like 10 minutes of being with their breath. So I totally agree.
Yeah. And I think people underestimate the power of their breath, but I also feel like people don't really understand like how much power can be in your breath and how much you can shift your like attitude, your mood, right? With just even some simple breathing, right? When you come back to the breath and just even close your eyes and just sit and breathe like in your being for like even a minute, right? Like that 60-second reset is so important. And like even starting there with that little tiny meditation of 1 minute can just open the door to powerful places.
Yeah, completely. I think the we have so many functions that we have all day. Obviously we breathe all the time, whether we're thinking about it consciously or not. So when we actually give that space to consciously think of like, wow, receiving this life force, this like literal air that's keeping alive. It was my breath, feel alive, and that, and also just really like bringing yourself back into center with that breath, like really feeling your heart and feeling your body and your lungs, and it slow down more. That's one of the most powerful things about all kinds of breathwork techniques, is that it's giving you this conscious outlet to slow down, connect with your body, and kind of tune out all of the craziness that's going around outside of us.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes, I love that. So tell me something that is challenging that you have overcome in your business, and just kind of like, how did that affect your business? Like, where were you before? And then like once you moved through that thing, like what was the outcome of that?
Mm. There's definitely a few. I feel like when you are an entrepreneur, you meet edges of things over and over again. But I think the biggest one that was more at the beginning for me, and still says hello every now and then, you meet cycles of it, is the conditioning I had that hard work is what I needed to do to be successful. I
Mhm.
grew up in a family that like valued hard work over everything. I literally like I would work in my parents' company and like just help them with stuff, like random stuff. Like I remember a summer I had a like huge 55-gallon barrel full of screws and nuts and bolts that I had to sort. And
Oh
that
my
took me
gosh.
like months.
Right.
It
Right.
took me a long time and I didn't get paid. But I loved that though. Like, and that was like, hey, you're doing great because you're working hard, and we're, implementing like resilience and just continuing to go through the motions and do the thing. And I really took that hard work like um conditioning to heart. I worked so hard in every job that I did after college. I would go like full time, overtime, working my butt off. Like I would come into work on days when I was off just to make sure things were going well, and and help my team, because I was like, this is what makes me good and I'm successful, and I'm gonna like be successful like this. But I didn't make that much money. Like, just because I was working that hard, that didn't equal the abundance that was being created. And I didn't have an abundant life because I was constantly only focused on work and I wasn't prioritizing the things that are important to me. I have time for all that because I was just focused on work, and also focused to it, like addicted to making money. There was that
Right.
part of it too, where I was like, I want to make more money. I want to keep working. Um, so when I started my into this realm of business of like personal development and going into myself, first I had no intention of doing what I do now. I was just like, I cannot keep doing things the way I'm doing things. I have all this money saved up, but I feel purposeless and I feel disconnected from who I am. Like, this is not how I should feel at 25 years old. I should feel like so turned on by life. I feel like, what the heck? And I yeah, I just started tuning into myself. And then when I started like getting these hits of like, okay, you should start like holding space for other people, and you should dive into breath work more and start holding spaces like that. And I literally the first like coaching client I had was a friend who was like, you need to coach me. And like then the next week I had two other people that came out of nowhere that were like, can you please coach me too? So it all like kind of happened so naturally. Um, but I still, when I was like, oh wow, this is business, I had to like let go of that conditioning of like, I need to work, 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 work. I need to go really hard at this. And I was so like blessed to have found human design and have that like big permission slip. I'm a projector. And so like it was like, don't work that hard, like rest a fucking ton and like let the magic come to you. And I was like, oh my God, this is the permission slip I've been wanting. And also what feels so aligned for me now. And now, years from those moments of the beginning, like I I really don't feel that need to work hard, that like, oh gosh, to be successful, I need to fill up my time and do all these things. And I've ended up creating like more abundance, not just financially, also like in freedom and time, because time is money.
Mm-hmm.
And I've, worked the least amount that I ever have. And I've also taken off like lots of time for vacation and like not even just vacation, but prioritizing those things that are so important to me. Like I had my honeymoon that we did 3 months because I was like, this is like insanely important to me to be in this love portal with my partner that's never going to be available like this again. And,
Right.
we conceived in that love portal too. And that was part of our intention, was like, let's make a baby up in this spot. And, like, that's something I'll never get back. And I'm so glad that I dedicated like all that time, took time off work. And it's funny even saying take time off work, like everything I do like ends up contributing to work and feels
Yeah.
really, so like I don't even need to like take time off. It's more like just, yeah, like I don't know, be in the zone with my man.
I love that. I love that though. And I don't think so, and as you were talking, I wrote down a few notes, right? Like hard work and resilience, but also like the things you were talking about where, like, yes, hard work is good, but I think for so long we like idolized the hustle culture, right? Where we were like, oh my gosh, I'm hustling all day, every day. Yay, look at me hustle. Here I am online. Look at how much work I'm doing, right? And same for me when I worked in corporate, like I would come in and, like I would work in the beginning. I worked 40, 50, 60, 70 hour weeks. And yes, I got like paid and compensated for that. But at the end of the day, like it wasn't that much more than what I was already making. So thinking about that and then shifting from corporate into entrepreneurship, right? Like taking that leap and going, oh my gosh, now I have to hustle for myself. I have to be busy. But that really just leads to burnout, right? Like, and I think
Yeah.
when you're, yes, the work is important, but the rest is equally as important. And I talk a lot about that to my clients, right? Like, are you resting? And especially when you start to bring in human design, and I love that you brought that up because I think as you bring in human design, um, into what you're doing, you start to realize that you can take more of that time off, right? And you can take those spaces, and especially if you're a projector, right? Like having that time and space to just be like, yes, this is what I do. Here it is. Like, here's what I do. And people are like, oh my gosh, tell me more. Right? Like, tell me more. Like that. I love projectors for that reason because they can just kind of sit back and be like, well, of course I do this and I know all about this. Like, please come sit, let me tell you about it. Right. And I think that is so, so powerful.
Yeah. I the human design was definitely huge in like me shedding that conditioning. Like it was huge because I grew up in a household of manifesting generators and generators. So I was like that, and I knew that like even before I was like, I bet my mom is this and I bet my dad is this. Like I can just feel it in them. I don't know what my brother is. He's probably a generator though, like honestly. And so like I was also that like, having to redefine and look at my childhood too through a different lens of like, oh wow, like I've been forced to do, not forced, but like conditioned to do. And the like it's so rampant in our society because we've had some like overall conditioning that us being productive is what creates worthiness within our being. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you are doing stuff and like, like busy all the time, then you are worthy. And that's why you see like people who like, even when they're not busy, they're like, I'm so busy and I need to do this. It's like I'm like, is that something to be like look up to? Like how busy you are and how you don't have time for the things that you actually love to do? Is that what we are striving towards? And it's funny because this like hustle culture thing has been in the back of my mind a lot because in this like, personal development coaching industry, I'm starting to see more and more of that where it's glorifying how busy, how packed, like how everything. And I, even in my clients, like, and myself, I've noticed where I'm like, oh, I should, are we in this whole realm because we want to and that's out work that, we have time and energy so we can travel, be with our family, be with our friends. I see people who are like at a wedding and they're like posting about stuff like their offerings. And I'm like, shouldn't you like, don't you want to just enjoy the time that you're with your family?
Right.
And of course, like people do things in their own way, and it's not my space to judge or anything, but it's just I see that hustle culture still permeating this industry when I feel like this industry is created to kind of break down that hustle culture and also be inspiration for other industries all over, like, every industry of like, this is what it can be like. You could work, 10 to 20 hours a week and make more than you ever have and have the time for yourself to dedicate yourself to practices, to listen to your intuition. And I think that's the like other little bit about the hustle culture too, is when we feel so much of like, I got to do still in this industry. Find a lot of people at the beginning, they're like, let me figure out what to do. And they're trying to use that masculine energy still of like, let's like, how am I going to structure my business? How am I going to do these things? What are my offerings? What can I sell? Like, and it comes from that energy, the baseline of like, how can I make money? And like,
Mm-hmm.
how can I make this work? Which is,
Right.
of course, like you got to have that little bit of it. You can't be like, whatever. Like, some
Right.
people can, but like, you also have to have a really healthy dose of that feminine where it's like, I need to like tune into myself. So, whether it's breath work, like we were talking about before, of like slowing down, meditation, going on a walk in nature quietly, just all of these different things that allow you to kind of get out of your mind and get into your heart and start, instead of it just only being how could I make money, or what should I make that will make me money, or what does my audience want, like those kinds of things, instead of it be shifting to more like, what is my heart want to offer to this world? What is my
Right.
soul calling me to make? Like, who do I want to impact, and what is aligned with my why? And like those be the first questions, and then you're like, okay, this is aligned with my why. Now let me create an offering, and then the money just comes from that because you are so like in alignment with what you need to be doing. So,
Right.
yeah.
I love no, and I love that. And I totally agree. And I think a lot of people, as they step into the coaching world, right? They go through their coaching course and they're like, okay, I have to create this kind of offer and do this, do that, do that. And they start to follow those steps, but then they like get lost in what that means for them. And I think when you can tune into yourself and really kind of come back to like, what do I love to do? And
Mhm.
if I love to do that, how can I show up in the world and show other people that they can have this thing too, right? That kind of unique transformation that coaches can bring, right? And even in other industries as well. But thinking from a coaching perspective, like so many people, and I see this a lot of times with business coaches, and I know business coaches get a bad rap, and like I want to change that. And that is why I chose business coaching, but I also like I love business and I love helping people have a simple, easy business, right? So when you were talking about like productivity, consistency, and like that, like 10 to 20 hour work week. Well, yeah, you want to have time to work. Yes, absolutely. But also, like, what else do you want to do? Do you want to raise your kids? Do you want to homeschool them? Do you want to, I don't know, travel the world? Like, how can you kind of fit your business into your lifestyle so that it becomes a part of your life? So that for like for you, where business is just part of life and it's just this like ebb and flow of amazing energy that comes in and brings with it abundance. I think that is where, the hustle culture kind of brings us into this, oh, you have to be consistent and productive. And well, yes, you do need some consistency and productivity. It doesn't have to be this like 80-hour work week. It can be 10, 20 hours. It can be showing up as it feels good for you.
Yeah. I love what you just said. And like one thing that just really stood out is just like reminding people that we weren't put here on this earth to just like work a fuck ton and then die.
Right.
Like, and
Yes.
like one of the things I have to like, even with my husband who loves what he does for work, but he'll like, I'm like, let's take off and like, let's go travel. And he's like for the honeymoon, like he had to quit his job and then like, get rehired on. And I was like, and he was like in resistance of like, oh, what the heck? Like, I can't do this. I'm like, babe, this is important. This is the life. Like, we have this ability to go travel, explore, be with each other. And then that's the conditioning of like, oh God, like I can't not be working. And it's like, yeah, you freaking can. Like, there's times in your life that are important. Like, even like I know we took also I he also quit because I was like, let's take 6 months and travel the United States in a van.
Right.
And he was okay. But like it's weird. I'm saying thankfully we were in the time his grandmother was sick and we were able to go there and be there and like help her and be there for an extended period of time, where I know not everybody has that opportunity to like literally take off work and go sit like by their loved ones and
Right.
in their times of need. So like those are the kinds of things that are really important in life, that we just get so caught up again in that conditioning of like, oh, I can't leave work, or I'm only allowed this amount of paid time off or whatever. And it's like, oh my God, like we need to create a culture where it's like, I need to take time off. My kid's sick, or my kid is celebrating something. Like, it doesn't always have
Right.
to be the bad things. Like my just remembering that our life is not about work. And I think there's something, I don't know if I'll get this quote right, so I'll just take the essence of it. But it's like, you your job doesn't care about you,
Uh-huh.
basically.
Yeah. Yes.
So, like, I obviously, like, this is in different industries, but it's like, hey, like if your job is like, somebody's gonna fill that job. It's okay. You can
Mhm.
always find another job, but you're not gonna have another moment. Like, that moment will pass. So whether that's like, a graduation or a wedding or a like, I don't know, like all of the different things that can come up that are really important to you in life, like those moments will pass, but jobs will always be there.
Right.
So, and I loved also what you said about the different industries, because it's definitely not just in like I've helped some clients that are like hairstylists, and they're like, I want to do hair differently. I want it to be more like holding space. Like, that was one client I had. She's like, are the original space holders. Like, they're kind of like bartenders, like they're the
Right.
ones that are really listening to people and like consist, like you go see them once a month or whatever, and they're like, all right, let's check in. Like, they were coaches before coaches were a thing.
Oh, totally. Totally.
And like,
Yeah.
that's like, I don't know, that's how I feel. Like, my first hairstylist ever, she did my mom's hair. And like, now that I'm pregnant, she like calls me, like, we're not in the same state, and she calls me, she's like, I'm thinking about you, how are you, what's going on? And like, oh, I love and connection, life being so important.
Yeah. I love that. I love that so much. And I think, when we can find different ways to like do something that's been done the same way, right? Like with the hairstylist and holding space. Like, how can you bring some of that into your areas of expertise, right? Like, you don't have to just be a coach in order to do some of these things, right? Like, you could bring, especially
Yeah.
with breath work, right? You could bring that into like a corporate space. And like, I imagine that could be so incredibly powerful on a corporate level, right? Because now you're starting to like see your team members. And that was one of the reasons when I left my corporate job, I quit my boss. I didn't necessarily quit my job. Like I liked the job, but I didn't like my boss because there was no team, right? Like I didn't feel appreciated. In fact, I was told, well, you need to work more because your cohorts are working more. So you need to also be here the same amount of hours. And I'm like, but I'm a manifesting generator, right? So I'm like, I get my work done in less than 40 hours a week, and you can't keep up with me. So give me more work. And like, I had even gone out into the company and found more work in other departments. And then I was getting in trouble for doing that other work. And I'm like, but I'm bored. I'm bored. So please entertain me. What are you going to do for me if I can't go do it myself, right? So it got to the point where I was like, I'm not working 60 hours a week. I I'm done. I quit. Right? So, like bringing that aspect of like allowing your people to be seen, right? And really like understand what they need, I think is so, so powerful. And I
Yeah.
know a lot of what you do really like helps people do that. And I think that's so beautiful, right? Like it's so needed in this like I feel like we're in this big time of like slow down, right? We're starting to slow our culture down, right? And just like what you talked about, a 3-month honeymoon. I know a lot of people would go, "You did what? 3 months? Like, man, I'm lucky to get a week, right?" And I
Mm-hmm.
think, like prioritizing that is so important. And I feel like there's this big shift that's happening where people are starting to realize the power in slowing down, right? I feel like that's why there's a lot of people doing like homesteading now, and there's a lot more of like, how can I simplify my life and do more of what I love? Like how can I do those things, make some money because that's just the society we live in. And like how can I just really enjoy that? I think that is so, so powerful.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I just want to touch on like what you said about bringing like this energy into like the corporate realms or other realms, because I do think it's so important, especially when you were talking about like how the situation you had at work. Like heard, I haven't seen it myself firsthand, but heard people like bringing in human design experts and like literally like, okay, what is everybody's design on this team? Like, how can we use how they work to the
Right.
best of our ability for this, company? And I know one thing that really struck me. I had two women that came to a retreat. They knew each other. They were lawyers together. And one of the women like quit being a lawyer and was like, I'm going to be a coach, and like, went to like, that kind of route. And the other one was still a lawyer, and she had a one-on-one session with me during the retreat, and was just like, I really like resonate with this work, and I really like love everything you're doing, but I don't want to quit my job. Like I almost like want to change the system from within. And I was like, yes, like you have, like there has to be people that do that too. Like that's
Right.
the real work too, of like being like, I'm not just gonna, not that it's bad to like be like, hey, I'm leaving and do something else. It's all okay. But the work is also in like changing the systems and being that like spark for the legal or the corporate world, the medical field. Oh my God, the medical field of being like,
Right.
hey, let's prioritize our health and wellness instead of like she was doing like, I don't know, 80 to 100 hours a week. I don't even know if there's that many hours in the fucking week. I was just like, wait, what? How often do you work? And like she was like, yeah, like I work my freaking tail off. And I was like, wow, like I can't imagine that. And she's like, yeah, I want to change like the company culture and change the legal culture. And I think like that's the toughest job too, to have this like knowing of what's out there and be like, you know what, I'm not going to just run towards that. I'm going to like start to implement this slowly, so then hopefully generations from now, hopefully not even generations, hopefully years, a couple years from now, like
Right.
other people are shifting things. Like
Mm-hmm.
I know COVID brought out some really cool stuff like from corporations that are like doing 4 days a week instead of 5 days, which like I think is like I think we should all like work 3 days a week and like it be again like I don't know, I guess 7 hour days are fine, but I don't know, I'm just like we don't need to work, like let's just like get the money, go do what we want to do, like this is what's important, is like us doing, living our life.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like I feel like that's a very projector statement to be like, can't we just relax?
You're so right. I'm like, we don't need to work at all. Just like, don't do anything. Just like the money will come. Like,
And me as a manifesting generator, I'm like, yeah, but I really like to work. I really love to work. I love to work in so many capacities, right? Like that is so much fun for me. But that is what I like, that's what I love about human design, right? Because you kind of start to figure out like, okay, you have the like little worker bees, me, who like I can do 100 things at once and be like, yay, it's done. I'm so excited. Here's this thing. Ta-da. Right. And
yeah.
then you have the generators who are like, okay, yes, here's the logical way to do things, right? Manifesting generators, we love to skip steps, right? That's why we do so much at one time. And then the manifestors are like, oh, there's this brilliant idea that I have. Generators, please bring it to life. And then the reflectors and projectors kind of come in, right? And the reflectors are like, you sure you want to do that? Like, this is what it might look like. And projectors are like, yeah, that thing, cool, good, yes, here, here. Let's go take a nap.
Yeah. It's like, let me guide you to this,
Right,
like find this revelation. Yeah, and that is why I guess we do see so many projectors in like the, coaching industry and like leading retreats and stuff, because that is what I mean, that is what I'm really good at. I'm really
right.
good at like turning people on and opening them up to deeper expressions of themselves, because I see them like as their highest self so easily. Like I really
Mm-hmm.
do. I'm just like, oh, like I see the full picture. Like you're so fucking incredible. Like this is, and I asked the good question. So it's funny. You're so right. Like it's just I work in a different way though. That's I guess like
Right.
I'm like a life consultant, like in a sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And I think, like from a human design perspective, that really, it really allows you to like sit in the power of you, right? Like, I know the things that I love to do that I can get done quickly, and that really excites me, right? My daughter is a projector, and there are days where I'm like, for the love of Pete, can you move just like a little bit faster? Can we accomplish this task like a little bit quicker, because please,
He's
right?
waiting for you to finish the
She
task.
totally is. She totally is. She'll start something and she'll be like, Mommy, do you want to help me color this thing? And I'll be like, yes, cool. Like, and
True
like,
projector.
yep. And I'll just like start taking over. She's like, oh, Mommy, that color doesn't go there. And I'll be like,
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, I can totally see that.
or, like I'll be cooking something for supper and she'll be like, oh, Mommy, are you sure you want to cook that? And I'll be like, please tell me you're going to eat chicken nuggets for the 12th time this week. I don't know. Right? It's so cool. And I think, like from a business perspective, the more I have brought human design into my business, kind of welcomed it into my life and just kind of used it kind of as a guideline for like, okay, What am I feeling? Am I feeling excited about this thing? If I am, great, let's continue it. But if I'm not, like, is it something that has to be done in my business? If it is, can I like hire someone to do it that will do it better and faster than me, who is excited about that? And then like just from like a life perspective to be like, okay, I know my energy is like enveloping crazy. And I've had people tell me like, you're so much fun to be around, but I'm also exhausted after I'm around you. And I'm like, I know, sorry. Like,
Yeah.
if you need a hype girl, I'm your hype girl. Like, I am the person who will hype you up and then like let you like do your thing because I know, right? My energy is crazy.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I love that so much.
That's so awesome. So, what is one business tip that you would tell someone who is either like starting their journey in business or maybe they're feeling kind of stuck in the chaos of business? What's something that you would like tell them that's like a business tip?
Yeah. Oh, and yeah. Mm. I know I mentioned it before, and it's funny because I literally someone like on a Facebook group like basically asked like, "What do I do? I'm starting off and I have confusion. What advice do you guys have?" And I like wrote out this long thing. I'm like, "Listen, like tune into yourself. Start to like develop some sort of practice where you're listening to your intuition because the more again like that where you're creating from, the more you're creating from your heart, your soul, your intuition like even just like channeling divinely guided stuff like whatever it is, the more you're coming from that space, the easier everything's going to be because if you're trying to just reverse engineer how many $1,000 you want to make per month, you're gonna be like, oh god, like again leading to burnout. You're just gonna be like, this doesn't, it's not sustainable. But if you create from a place where you're like, oh my gosh, this is my soul work. I feel so good. I feel so connected. This lights me up. This doesn't feel like work at all. Like, then it's just going to keep overflowing and flowing. And I think the second part too is how do I want to say this? Don't get rigid in any area of your life,
Mhm.
especially in business. Um, we can start to pigeonhole ourselves and feel like, okay, I've done this thing or people know me for this thing, so I need to do this thing for the rest of my freaking life. Because again, we have this conditioning where it's like, you pick a job at 18 years old and then you are doing that until you are 59, whatever.
Right.
Um, like also allow the evolution of your being. And so what that is can be in your life, it can be in your business. And so like literally just like, oh, this is not lighting me up the way it was anymore, but this totally sparkly thing over here is awesome. And I'm starting to learn more about it and go for it. So like let your business evolve to be in alignment with what season you really are in. And there was one other thing that just came through. Um really just let yourself be delighted by life and be delighted by being in like whatever mindset you're in, like maybe it's the beginner stages of things, like let yourself be there and feel excited about it and get out of your own way.
Hmm.
And I say this in the sense of so many people get so caught up in like, why would anyone listen to me? Why would like this person, like what makes me special? All of those things. And again, you're just thinking about your damn self when you're asking
Right.
your questions. You're not thinking about all of those women, humans. I say women a lot because I usually work with women. You're not thinking about all those humans out there that are waiting desperately for you to put out that offer, to put out that product, to put out that service that is going to end up turning them on deeper into their passion or deeper into their embodiment, or is going to show them the aligned way for them. Like whatever it is, like people are waiting out there for you to put the thing out there. And
Hmm.
also, it's you. to put the thing out there. That is your special sauce. It's not a special sauce that you actually went and copied from somebody else's like thing because you think, oh, somebody else is doing this, so it works.
Right.
It works for that person because it's their special sauce. You got to find your special sauce, and like then everyone's going to be like, "Oh, that tastes so great." Like that is what
Right.
I've been waiting for. And if you're just like thinking, "Oh, I have to do things the way everybody else is doing things," you're diluting your magic and you're robbing the collective of your magic.
Right.
So, yeah, that was a long one, but
I love that though. And I think that's so true, right? Like we can definitely learn from others. Like, okay, this person did this thing this way. Let me try it and see like what kind of results do I get, right? So, for me, when people come to me for coaching, a lot of times, and in the beginning, I had a lot of clients say, just tell me what to do and I'll do that thing. And I'm like, no, I actually like I will give you things that I have done and I will tell you how they worked for me and I want you to go and try that thing on and bring you to it. Bring your special sauce to it. Bring the thing like, "Oh, you said do this thing like this, but I actually did it like this and it worked better." Great. That's great, right? So when people are like, "Here, steal my strategy," like it's probably not going to work for you like it did for them because you have
yeah.
to bring you to it. And I think something that I encourage all of my coaching clients to do is ask questions, right? Don't just take what I'm telling you. And I mean, yes, take what I'm telling you, implement it, go do the thing, but also ask questions. If it's not working for you, say, hey, this isn't working. It doesn't feel right. I don't feel aligned with it. Can we think of another thing to do? Like, can we reapproach this? Can we do this a different way? And like that for me, that excites me so much because I'm like, oh, yes, let's find a new way to do this old thing. And it's going to be part of your special sauce that you've created. And now you're so excited about it that you want to keep showing up for it. And when you're in
Yeah.
business, that's what you want, right? And I know a lot of people say, like, oh, I left my 9 to 5 to work a 24/7, right? Like a lot of entrepreneurs will be like, I work 24/7. And that goes back to like the hustle culture, but also like I do think about my business a lot. It takes up a lot of real estate in my head, and I like that, right? My kids, my family also take up a lot of real estate, but like I enjoy all of that thought processing and like new ideas. I also have an open head and ajna, so like that definitely plays into things where it's like, oh, here's an idea, here, right? But
Mhm.
like I also know when I need to take a time off, right? When I need to like, okay, my thoughts are getting too clouded. There's too much. They're too rushed. Like now is a good time to pause and go do something else where I'm not getting frustrated, right? Where I'm showing up in this like rushed capacity.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of people need to understand that for themselves, right? So playing off of like, how can you like kind of speed up to slow down or slow down to speed up, whichever one you want to look at, but like, how can that stuff ignite what you're doing and really fuel you so that, yeah, you get to go and live life. And if you want to take 2 months off, 3 months off, whatever, if you want to pause, like, do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I really love that. And I think what you were talking about with your how you serve your coaching clients, it's so important for your clients to remember like they have a filter. Like you as the client, like you're getting so much information. And I so believe in mentorship and being in so many different spaces. I am like supported by many women, like literally have 4 people that are supporting me in long-term mentorship. And I'm also plugged into different like memberships and programs and whatnot. So I really believe in like going into those places, but I also believe in using your own filter and finding out what's right for you. And
Mhm.
there's this one like concept. I used to be a ski instructor years ago, and like the way that people learn to ski typically is that you learn to pizza down the
Yep.
hill, and then
Yep.
you literally the next step after you mastered pizza is to unlearn pizza. And so like that's kind of the vibe. It's like here's the way, and now unlearn that and find your own way. Like,
Mm-hmm.
is like it's about you doing you. And yeah, I just I just like saw that pizza in my head when you were talking. I'm like, yeah, like you show people the ropes and then you also say figure it out yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
even in like my certification program, like I had a call last night and that's what we were talking about because I teach people how to hold space. But I'm like, I don't want you to hold space just the way I hold space. Like I'm telling you all of the reasons why I do the things I do, what I've seen in other places, how like, I've reflections back. But I also want you to like explore and change and like find what works for you because maybe your community will resonate something with something completely different than the way I do things. Like maybe your offerings are going to be different. And like that's why I've even had people that have asked like can you like sell the way you do your retreats and I'll just buy it and like I can do the same thing. And I'm like, it doesn't really quite work first because it's me and I
Right.
like intuitively do everything. That's just how I do things. But it's also like I've had some people that have like, done the same ceremony I've done. And like people happen to go to both retreats and they're like, wow, it's kind of crazy to see like how different it feels when you're like when there's the person that's just channeling things and doing the thing that's on their soul purpose. And then the person who's just like thinks this works and so they're doing it because they saw it work in a different space, but it's really not aligned for them.
Right.
So it can work in so many different ways. And gosh, yeah, you're robbing the collective if you're just like copy and pasting. You just got to start tuning in. And I know
Mm-hmm.
it's like tuning in. I think that's why it doesn't happen that often because it's like the hardest fucking part. Like you can, structures, organization, it's there. I don't know. For me, that's a big hard part, I have to admit. So I can't change for other people. But like it is tough to sit with yourself and like get quiet. Like that is a whole deconditioning of a whole, we were taught to move and go and do. And so when it's like just like be quiet and still and rest for an hour, and rest isn't sleeping, rest isn't watching TV, rest isn't reading a book, just like be silent. And brings up uncomfortable shit with people. That brings up
Right.
the shadows, that brings up the questions that you're like, oh, I don't want to ask that. I don't want to open that door. Behind those doors are where the magic lies, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I could not agree more with everything you just said. And I think, if people are wondering, like, okay, how do I like start to bring in some of this quiet time, right? Because I talk a lot about that with my clients because they're constantly in this, like, I've got to go, I've got to do this thing. And honestly, I see so many people who are trying to run on manifesting generator energy and they are not manifesting generators where I'm like, I want you to like go to bed at 8:30 and like sleep. And I want you to not have this like again, this hustle mentality, this hustle culture. I want you to slow down, like plan time to go take a walk in nature and don't take your phone. And just trust that like any ideas that come in and out, like if they are important, they will come back to you when you come back to your space. When you come back to your computer, they will come back to you. I promise the important ones will, right? And I say that as someone with an open head who has a lot of like, there's a lot of nothing, but there's also a lot going on up there, right? I listened to a podcast a couple months ago that was talking about an open head, and the people on there, like one person had a totally open head with no hanging gates, and I also have a totally open head, no hanging gates, and
Me
another
too.
person had a defined head, and they were like, "Wait, you just like have these downloads?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah." Right? And they were like, "Yeah, there's thoughts just come in and then they just go away."
Yeah.
And like if they're meant to stay, they will stay, and when I need them, they will come back. And the defined head was like, "Oh,
You'll have to
oh."
send me that podcast because I have a completely open head too with no gates and um yeah, like I totally resonate with what you're saying. It's wild. Like especially this is a whole other thing, but like when I do the psychedelic work that I do and I'm like
Yeah.
doing one-on-one people, like I am like receiving stuff from their spirit guides
Yep.
instantly, and I'm like, and I think that really makes me such a good space holder in those kinds of spaces.
Right.
That's a that's a different conversation for another
Oh
podcast,
my
but
gosh. Yeah. That's so true. And I think, like knowing that, like understanding where you have that defined and undefined energy in your body can be so important to help you in business. And I feel like, like what you were talking about with the psychedelics and the channeling and stuff like that, and receiving those messages, I think sometimes it's very overwhelming, right? And I say that as someone with, an open head, an open ajna, like where I get these downloads and I'm like, what? Like, is this my spirit guides telling me this? Is it someone else? Like, who have I been talking to lately? Like, who is in my like field and like all of that other like energy work, which again, I could talk about all of that for hours, right? Because I think it's so fascinating.
yeah.
But I think understanding like how to help yourself come back to you, right? When you were talking about like the heart centered and like what is it you truly want? I think that as a first step for someone who might be like, well, maybe I need breath work or maybe I need this thing. Like I think that is a really great place to start is breath work and like coming into like how can I sit still? How can I just exist and like not be scrolling, not be like doing something, just allowing myself to sit
Hmm.
and be.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. It doesn't even have to be even like sometimes I just sit here. I have like a little goddess space with an altar that's just like my vibey space. And I'll just like put on some incense and watch the smoke and the sun. Like it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have like I think people get so like, oh, it has to be like this, or oh, I have to have like a morning routine where I have another checklist of things that I'm checking off every
Oh my
morning. I
gosh.
meditated, I breathed, I journaled, I read 5 pages of a book. Like, I see that so often with people starting off because it's a good starting point. It's kind of like the learning and unlearning again. You're like, all right, I'm learning how to do a morning routine. And then you unlearn and realize like the whole point of a morning routine is for you to just drop in and like, again, like having rigidity of like what that looks like is just putting you into a box. Like
Right.
sometimes I do oracle readings for myself and I'm just like, let's pick cards and like, let's tune in. Sometimes I'm just staring at a crystal for a freaking hour. I'm like, oh,
Right.
yes, I'm like tuning into this. And like each one of those things, like I just have a bunch of things that are accessible to me. So I think yeah, some good advice for anyone listening is just like start to play around with different practices and know that you don't have to do the same thing every day. It helps. Let me like, don't get me wrong. When I started on this path, like at first, like I was meditating every day and I went up to like 2 times a day, 45 minutes a day until I
Yeah.
finally got to the point where I was like, okay, I need to loosen up the reins. And then things like started channeling and coming through and like me having that fluidity and having that openness of what that my routines look like, the ways I dropped in with myself. So yeah, it can be anything, I guess is what I'm saying. It can be
Yeah.
any.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so my last question for you today is if you were a kitchen utensil or gadget, what would you be and why?
That is a tough one. I'm like, there's so many kitchen utensils.
There are. I know, but what's like the first thing that just pops in?
Okay, the first thing that popped in, okay, there's two things that popped in, and I don't know what it would mean like metaphorically, but I two things popped in, a spatula and an apple slicer.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah.
No idea. Maybe because okay, this one thing kind of comes up for the spatula. Um okay, God, I know both of them now. All right, the spatula is because I've like, you know, you can look at any situation in two different lights. And
Mm-hmm.
like there's two different sides to everything. You can look at it like, oh God, the world is freaking coming for me and everything sucks. Or you can be like, everything is happening for me and everything's an opportunity, even the annoying traffic, even when my flight gets canceled, like it's all happening for me. And So I guess I'm like with the spatula with the pancake, like I like to flip to this, like to the other side and like really kind of like help myself. Like it's become a reflex already. Like I hardly ever see the negative things. Like I'm like, oh, well, I guess this is an opportunity for me to practice my patience
Yep.
or like, opportunity for something. Um, so I think that with the spatula and then the apple slicer, like getting to the core, getting to the root of things, like whether
Yeah.
that's myself, whether that's like supporting my clients or my retreat participants or like go in ceremony, like getting to the core, looking at the different aspects that are coming in for things and yeah, just like getting to the root of the magic. So I don't
I love
know.
that.
That's so funny that those two like just popped in my head.
That's so great. And I know it's like probably the most random question you'll probably be asked today. Like,
100%.
but I also feel like I love everyone's like reason why, right? And I think that can be so helpful as you're like moving in business and you're like, I need support and I need support in an area, but I'm not quite sure what it is, right? Like that kitchen utensil is definitely relatable, right? To see that, I think is such a cool, like different aspect. So thank you
Absolutely.
so much for being on the podcast. This has been so, so amazing. I would love for you to tell everyone how to connect with you, and anything you have coming up. And I'll drop all the links below. So let everyone know where they can connect with you.
Yeah, so I love to hang out on Instagram. That's probably like the place that I hang out most. And there's always stuff in my link in bio you can check out. But my Instagram is the Chelsea Renee with a few underscores after it. And my two companies are heartcenteredhumans.com or somaticbreathactivation.com. Somatic Breath Activation, I have a membership that's incredible. It's for somatics and breath work. So if you're like, I want to start dropping in and tuning into my soul and tapping into my intuition, like we've been talking about, that's a great resource. You can join, cancel anytime. There's like over 70 recordings there. We got guest experts bringing in their magic too, so you can also like play around and discover different things. And yeah, like I'd say come like subscribe or whatnot and see if you ever want to come to a retreat or anything. Heart-Centered Humans is where all that stuff happens. And I just love hanging out with you guys. So thank you so much for having me here. And
Yeah.
I'm so what a great time.
I love it. Thank you so much. And we'll talk to everyone later. Wow. What a great interview. Thank you so much for showing up here on the Chaos to Clarity podcast. Again, my name is Maggie. I'm so excited to connect with you. You can find all of the information, all of the links below in the show notes for today's interview. And I hope you have the best day ever.